My name is Leah Carson. I'm 36 years old, and I can't stop thinking about a moment that never should have happened. Or maybe it should have. It's hard to say when the line blurred, but I've replayed it so many times in my head, that split-second exchange in someone else's kitchen, on a Sunday that should have been ordinary. She asked, "Do you always look at me like that?" And I swear to God, something in me cracked open. But this isn't about her. Not yet. This is about how I ended up feeling like a stranger in my own skin, in my own marriage, in my own life. I used to think I had everything figured out. Matt and I met in college, the classic opposites attract story. He was confident, magnetic, always the center of attention. I was quieter, observant. But with him, I felt seen. Back then, he used to trace circles on my thigh while we watched movies. He'd kiss the back of my neck in the morning when I was brushing my teeth, wrap his arms around my waist and make me laugh just to watch me laugh. We were alive together. But now it feels like we're trying to remember a song we once loved but can't quite hum anymore. Last Tuesday, he kissed me goodbye before work, a quick brush on the lips, like checking off a task on a to-do list. I stood there for a second longer than necessary, hoping he'd notice, say something, come back. But he just grabbed his keys and said, "See you tonight," like it meant something. That same night, we watched a movie curled up on the couch, like we always do. My head on his shoulder, his hand on my hip. It looked like intimacy from the outside. But I felt like I was performing someone else's life. His fingers didn't grip, they rested. His breath didn't warm me, it just existed. We haven't had sex in 6 weeks. And it's not that we can't. It's that when his hands do reach for me in the dark, I freeze. Not because I don't love him, I do, in some exhausted, nostalgic way, but because the part of me that once opened to him without hesitation now folds in on itself. I miss desire. Not just being desired, but feeling it surge through me, uninvited, undeniable. Lately, I catch myself staring out of windows too long, zoning out during work calls, scrolling through photos from 5, 7, 10 years ago. I used to laugh with my whole body. Now I second-guess the shape of my own mouth when I smile. It's like I've been slowly disappearing, one unnoticed moment at a time. And then came that Sunday. Matt and I had gone to a backyard brunch at my friend Bree's house, something casual, a few families, too much sangria. Her mom, Angela, was visiting. I'd met her once before, briefly. Tall. Poised. The kind of woman who takes up space without apologizing for it. I went into the kitchen to help with something. Angela was slicing strawberries, sleeves rolled up, wedding ring absent. She looked up at me, right into me, it felt like. And I guess I looked back. Because she tilted her head slightly and said, half laughing but not really joking, "Do you always look at me like that?" It wasn't flirtatious. It wasn't innocent either. It was curious. Electric. Disarming. And I remember my stomach tightening in a way I hadn't felt in a long time, not from guilt or shame, but from aliveness. Like every nerve ending had remembered its job. I stammered something. Laughed too hard. Took the strawberries and left the kitchen. But I kept thinking about it. Her voice. The way she looked at me like she could see something under the surface. Something I thought I'd buried. I haven't told anyone. Not even Bree. And I'm not sure what it means yet. But I do know this, something shifted in me that day. And I can't go back to pretending it didn't. Matt's a paramedic. Always has been. The kind who runs toward things the rest of us instinctively run from, burning buildings, bleeding people, collapsed lungs. He thrives under pressure. At parties, people love to ask him about the craziest call you've ever had, like saving a life is a party trick. And he plays the part well, charismatic, composed, generous in all the ways that don't ask for reflection. But at home, it's different. He shows love through doing. Fixing the kitchen faucet before I can ask, replacing my car battery, leaving Tylenol and a water bottle by the bed when I have cramps. It's thoughtful, but it never opens a door for connection. It closes one. This past Thursday, I came home from work drained. One of my clients at the nonprofit I manage had relapsed. A 19-year-old girl with a baby. I tried to tell Matt about it, about the way the system fails people like her and how helpless I felt, but he just nodded, kissed my forehead, and said, "You care too much, babe." Then he grabbed my hips from behind and pulled me into him. His hand slid under my shirt, and I flinched. Not out of fear, out of ache. Emotional ache. "Not right now," I whispered, stepping away. He frowned. "It's been over a month, Leah." I knew what he meant. But I couldn't answer the way he wanted. I need to be in the same room with you first. Emotionally. He blinked, like I'd spoken a different language. "I'm right here. I made dinner, cleaned the damn house, and I'm touching you and telling you you're beautiful, and you act like I'm not trying." I hated how defensive he sounded. I hated how small I felt in response. I sat down on the edge of the bed and folded a pair of socks just to keep my hands moving. "It's not about the stuff you do," I said quietly. "It's about the way you look at me. The way you don't ask what I'm feeling unless it's about you. I need you to see me, Matt. Not just want me." He stared at me for a long time, then said, "So you're saying I don't love you, right?" "No," I replied, softer than I meant to. "I'm saying I don't feel loved right." He walked out after that. Went for a run, didn't come back for 2 hours. When he did, we barely spoke. He slept on the far edge of the bed, his back to me. And the thing is, I used to love his back. The strength of it, the safety it represented. Now it just feels like a wall I keep throwing myself against. The next morning, he left early for a double shift. He didn't wake me. At work, I scrolled through my phone during lunch and saw Bree had posted photos from the brunch. Angela was in the background of one, standing with her hand on her hip, laughing with a tilt of her head that looked suspiciously familiar. I stared at the photo too long. I don't even know what I was looking for. Maybe I just needed to see that moment captured, proof that I didn't imagine the tension. The awareness. I texted Bree. "Hey, how long is your mom in town for?" She replied right away. "Just a few more days." "Why?" My thumbs hovered over the screen. I deleted my first 3 drafts of a reply before settling on, just wondering. "She's cool." Bree Hart reacted. That was it. No questions. No assumptions. And somehow, that made me feel even more unmoored. Later that night, Matt texted that he'd be late. Another call, some accident on the highway. I didn't bother replying. I poured a glass of wine, sat in the bath, and tried not to cry. But what got me wasn't the silence or the loneliness. It was the fact that when I closed my eyes, the face that came to mind wasn't his. Saturday night, Matt made tacos, the spicy ones I usually love, with extra lime and the cilantro he knows I never bother chopping myself. He even put music on, one of those playlists from our early days. Old school indie rock, fuzzy guitars, echoey lyrics that used to feel like soundtracks to our late-night drives. I should have been touched by the effort. I tried to be. He leaned across the kitchen counter, holding out a tortilla for me to taste. "Good," he asked with a crooked smile, the same one that used to make me melt. I smiled back, or tried to. My lips moved, but something in my chest stayed locked. "Yeah. It's good," I said, taking a sip of my wine instead of another bite. Later, we curled up on the couch. Or, more accurately, he curled around me. His hand found my thigh, thumb drawing soft circles like it used to. My body stiffened just enough that I hoped he didn't notice. "I miss this," he murmured into my hair. "Miss you." I didn't know how to respond. Saying "I miss me too" felt too cruel. But saying "I miss you" would have been a lie, or worse, a half-truth I wasn't sure I could back up. He shifted, pulling me tighter against him. His lips brushed the side of my neck, slow, deliberate. It was meant to stir something. And maybe, for a split second, it did. But right underneath that flicker came a strange wave of dread. I didn't want this to turn into more. Not tonight. Maybe not ever again, though I hated myself for even thinking that. Matt, I said gently, nudging his hand off my leg. He froze for a second, then pulled back, confused but trying not to show it. What's wrong? Nothing, I lied. I'm just tired. He studied me, and I could see the frustration bubbling behind his eyes. Still, he forced a chuckle, like if he laughed, maybe he could shake this feeling away. You're always tired lately, he said. I thought this was good, you and me. Just close. I know, I replied, sitting up straighter. It is. I trailed off. I didn't want to fight. But silence felt like betrayal too. Matt stood, rubbing the back of his neck like he was trying to massage the tension out of the air. You act like I'm doing something to you. Like I'm the enemy for touching my own wife. His voice wasn't angry. Just hurt. And somehow that made it worse. I opened my mouth, closed it again. I wanted to explain that it wasn't about him, not really. It was about the pressure I felt every time affection turned into expectation. The way every brush of skin felt like a question I couldn't answer anymore. He crossed the room and kissed me. It wasn't demanding. It was soft, even sweet. But I felt nothing. Worse than nothing, I felt numb. Like my body had gone offline. When he pulled away, he searched my face. Still nothing? He asked, voice low. I'm sorry, I whispered. I don't know what's wrong with me. Matt let out a breath, not quite a sigh. He didn't say anything else. Just walked into the bedroom and shut the door softly behind him. I stood in the living room for a long time, the taste of wine still on my tongue, my chest burning with shame and confusion. I want him. I really do. I want to reach for him without flinching, to feel desire instead of guilt. But lately, every kiss feels like a test I'm failing. And somewhere deep down, buried beneath everything I can't say aloud, a thought rises like steam through a crack: why does everything have to turn into sex? We were out at dinner. A cozy Italian place we used to go to when we first moved in together. It had that dim, flickering candlelight that once made everything feel more romantic than it was, but tonight it just made my wine look darker, like blood in a glass. Matt had made the reservation without telling me. Said it was a surprise date night. He even wore that button-up I always liked, the navy one that brings out his eyes. He was trying. I saw it. I appreciated it. And yet, from the moment we sat down, my chest was tight. The waiter asked if we were celebrating anything, and Matt laughed and said, just keeping the spark alive. I smiled automatically, but it felt brittle. My cheeks hurt from pretending. The wine came. We clinked glasses. He reached across the table to take my hand, not just casually, but with both of his, like he was trying to hold all of me in one grasp. You look beautiful, he said, and it sounded so practiced, like something he'd been saving up. I nodded, swallowing hard. Thanks. He launched into a story about a call from earlier that week, a guy who'd driven into a ditch trying to save a dog, how they pulled both of them out alive. It should have been a sweet story. I tried to listen, really tried. But his voice faded in and out, like a radio that kept losing signal. I caught bits and pieces, but none of it landed. I was staring at the breadbasket, wondering why my stomach felt knotted instead of hungry. Then he leaned forward, lowering his voice like it was just us in the room. I know things have been off. But I was thinking we could get away for a weekend. Just the two of us. Reset. We haven't had time like that in years. And I broke. Not loudly. Not in a dramatic, screaming way. But something inside me buckled and gave out. I shook my head, not even knowing why. I don't want a weekend away, I said, my voice too sharp. I want to stop feeling like I'm broken every time you touch me. Matt blinked. What? I can't keep pretending, Matt, I said, louder this time. That is enough. That we're okay. You think a trip will fix this? We don't even know how to talk anymore. People turned their heads. I saw the flash of discomfort in Matt's face, the way his jaw tightened just enough to betray his embarrassment. We are talking, he said, keeping his voice low. Right now, Leah. I'm trying. You're the one pulling away. I'm not pulling away, I snapped. I'm drowning. And there it was, the sentence that had been clawing at my throat for weeks. Months, maybe. Out in the air now, ugly and naked. Matt sat back like I'd slapped him. His face went blank. Not angry, not sad, just that awful, stunned neutrality that always comes right before the silence. I don't know what you want from me anymore, he said finally. I feel like I'm not allowed to love you the way I do. Every time I reach for you, it's like I'm doing something wrong. You're not doing anything wrong, I whispered, but it was too late. He looked away. Picked up his napkin, set it back down. The silence stretched. The waiter arrived to check on us. I wiped my eyes quickly, pretending I had something in them. Matt said, just the check, please, and didn't look at me again until we were in the car. On the ride home, we didn't speak. The streetlights flickered across his face as he drove, and I watched his hands on the steering wheel, the same hands that once made me feel wanted, safe, alive. Now they just made me feel tired. Back home, I went straight to the bathroom, closed the door, sat on the edge of the tub, and cried with my face in a towel. I didn't even know who I was crying for. Him? Me? Us? Maybe all of it. Maybe none. I felt like a monster. For pushing him away. For needing something I didn't even have the words for. And then, as I rinsed my face in cold water and stared at myself in the mirror, blotchy and hollow-eyed, that moment came back again. Angela. In the kitchen. The way she saw me without expectation. The way she asked that question with a tilt in her voice I hadn't heard in years. Do you always look at me like that? And the guilt surged fresh in my gut, thick, acidic. Because the truth is, I think I did. 2 weeks passed. The air in the apartment changed, not with shouting or slammed doors, but with something quieter. Sadder. Like all the light had been drained from the walls. Matt still made coffee every morning. Still folded the laundry when I forgot. But he stopped kissing me goodbye. Stopped sitting beside me on the couch unless there was a full cushion of space between us. And I noticed. God, I noticed. Some mornings, I'd catch him staring at nothing, spoon paused halfway between his cereal bowl and his mouth, like he was trying to solve a math problem too big for words. I'd watch him and wonder if I was the problem he was stuck on. I missed him. That's the hardest part to admit. I missed the way we used to fall into each other without effort, how he'd touch the small of my back as he passed, or whisper stupid inside jokes that made me snort mid-sip. I even missed his dumb optimism, the way he believed we could fix anything with time and enough effort. But now, I didn't know how to reach him. Or worse, I didn't know if I deserved to. I kept thinking about that night at dinner. The way his face looked when I said I was drowning. It haunts me, not because I regret saying it, but because it was true. And maybe I should have said it months ago. Years, even. But I also see him now, really see him, walking around with his own silent ache. A man who's been trying to love me the only way he knows how, even if it's not the way I need. That doesn't make him wrong. It makes him human. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. The bed beside me was empty. I found him in the living room, sitting on the edge of the couch in the dark. His elbows on his knees, head in his hands. He didn't hear me come in. I almost said his name. Almost crossed the room to sit beside him. But something held me back, not fear, exactly, but shame. The kind that says, you did this. Let him grieve without you. So I went back to bed. The next day, he left early again. I heard the front door click shut before the sun had even warmed the windows. That afternoon, I sat in our bedroom, staring at the tiny photograph on the dresser, us at the beach, 2 summers ago. He was squinting into the sun, arm around me, both of us sticky with sunscreen and salt water. I remembered how he'd picked me up and carried me into the waves just before that shot. How I'd shrieked and laughed, and he'd said, "God, I love that sound." Where did that version of us go? Were they buried under the weight of unmet needs? Or just, lost? The truth is, I don't hate Matt. I've never hated him. I love him in a way that's quiet and sad and confusing, like a language I used to be fluent in, but forgot somewhere along the way. And the scariest part is, I don't know if love is enough. I sat there for hours, alternating between remembering and regretting. My phone buzzed with a message from Bree, something about dinner plans and whether I wanted to swing by. I didn't answer. Because I knew what I had to do. I had to decide, not just whether I wanted to stay, but whether I could stay honestly. Without performing. Without bitterness. So I wrote it down, in the notes app on my phone, not to send, just to see the words outside my head. Do I want to try again? Or finally walk away? I stared at the question for a long time. And for the first time in weeks, I let myself sit still long enough to consider the answer. It was raining when I finally said the words out loud. We were in the kitchen, neutral ground. He was rinsing dishes, sleeves rolled, the same quiet, methodical rhythm he always used after dinner. I stood behind him, arms crossed, unsure how to begin. "Matt," I said softly. He turned, eyes tired but kind. Always kind. That was the worst of it. "I can't keep doing this," I said. A pause. Not surprised, just waiting for me to finish. "I think we broke somewhere. And we've been pretending we didn't." My voice caught. Or maybe I've just been pretending. He dried his hands on a dish towel, then set it down slowly. No protest. No panic. Just stillness. Then, quietly, "I know." That was all. I felt something collapse in me, a mix of grief and relief. Like holding your breath for months and finally exhaling, even if the air tastes like loss. "I didn't want to hurt you," I said. He nodded. "You didn't." "Not on purpose." We stood there for a long time, not touching. Just breathing the same air. Then he stepped forward. Gently. Hesitantly. He wrapped his arms around me like someone cradling something already cracked. I let myself fall into the hug, pressing my face into his chest. He smelled like soap and old sweaters and home, or at least what home used to mean. He kissed the top of my head. No heat. No need. Just something soft and final. "I'll sleep on the couch tonight," he said, pulling back. "Okay," I whispered. And that was it. He didn't ask for more time. I didn't ask him to fight. We both knew, some distances don't get bridged by love alone. That night, I lay in bed and listened to the storm outside, the wind against the windows, the steady drip from the kitchen sink. And beneath it, the faint creak of the couch as he shifted in his sleep. We hadn't failed. Not exactly. We'd just grown in opposite directions. Slowly, then all at once. Like vines reaching for different sun. Still, I was grateful. For the good years. For the realness. For the fact that he let go without turning cruel. Love like that is rare, even if it doesn't last. You know what no one tells you? That love can be good, gentle, honest, well-meaning, and still not be enough. I used to think the end of a relationship had to be violent. Betrayal. Screaming. Someone walking out with a suitcase and a slammed door. But that's not how it ended with Matt. It ended with a whisper. With silence. with two people quietly realizing they didn't know how to reach each other anymore. And I think that kind of ending hurts worse. Because there's no villain to blame. Just time. Distance. And all the things we stopped saying. When Matt and I met, I remember feeling seen. Desired. Like the world had finally made space for me to rest. He was strong in that steady, capable way, the kind of man who fixed leaky faucets and rubbed your back when you had cramps and believed everything could be solved if you just worked hard enough. I used to think that was romantic. But over time, I started to lose parts of myself in that steadiness. Not because he asked me to, he never did, but because I didn't know how to stay soft in a world where I felt like I had to keep up the performance of being fine. Of being easy to love. I didn't tell him when the sex started to feel like pressure. When his touch, though gentle, felt like a question I couldn't answer anymore. I didn't tell him that some nights I cried in the shower because I didn't want to be held, I wanted to be known. I thought something was wrong with me. That I was broken. That I should be grateful for a man who still wanted me, who still reached for me when so many others would have stopped trying. But desire without understanding isn't intimacy. And love without curiosity becomes habit. He loved me, yes. But he loved the version of me who smiled through everything. Who didn't flinch when he grabbed my waist in the kitchen or kissed my neck before coffee. He didn't know the version of me who was tired. Conflicted. Longing for something I couldn't even name. Until someone else looked at me like I was still there. Like I hadn't disappeared inside my own life. Angela didn't kiss me. Didn't touch me. But when she asked, "Do you always look at me like that?" I realized I hadn't looked at anyone like that in a long time. Least of all myself. And no, I didn't cheat. I didn't cross any lines. But in that moment, I felt something stretch awake inside me, something I'd buried under years of shoulds and maybes and next times. Desire isn't just about sex. It's about feeling chosen. Seen. Lit up from the inside out. And for the first time, I realized I hadn't felt that in years, not from Matt, not from myself. I don't blame him. Honestly, I admire how he let me go without turning bitter. That's a different kind of love. A braver one, maybe. We gave each other what we could. And when that stopped being enough, we stepped back. Now? I'm not rushing to fill the space. I go on long walks. I journal more than I talk. I let the silence stay, even when it hurts. And slowly, I'm learning that being wanted is not the same as being understood. I still believe in love. But I think next time, I'll ask better questions. I'll stop pretending I'm okay just to keep the peace. I'll tell the truth when something starts to feel off, not wait until it turns into distance I can't explain. And I'll ask for someone who sees all of me. Not just the parts that are easy to hold. So if you're listening to this, and you're wondering if it's too late to say what's in your chest, it's not. Say it. Because if you're going to lose someone, let it be because you were honest. Not because you stayed quiet out of fear. That's what I learned. That love without voice is just proximity. And I want more than closeness. I want a connection. Even if it costs me comfort. Even if it means walking away.